The views and opinions expressed in this podcast by the host or the guest do not necessarily reflect the views of Paranormal Buzz Radio or its sponsors. Use of any material produced by Paranormal Buzz Radio without express written consent is strictly prohibited. For information on everything Paranormal Buzz Radio has to offer, visit our website, paranormalbuzzradio.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Listener discretion is advised.
I think I've always believed in the paranormal, but the deeper I get in this field, the more questions I uncover. I started a program called Seeking the Paranormal in an effort to gain insight and dialogue from others interested in the same things as me. And while we've learned a lot together, the questions still remain. So I'm bringing my thoughts to the airwaves, and I've brought along my friends, Adam and John, to share in the fun. Together, we'll tackle the tough topics and debate the evidence as we continue to seek the paranormal. Welcome back to Seeking the Paranormal. I am Sarah, joined as usual by John and Adam, and they are in fine form already, so...
You sound disappointed about it.
Oh, they're already acting up. Oh.
They're here already.
Nobody is surprised.
I want to go solo.
Well, before we get too far into this, we're going to do our first case study tonight. And we haven't given away the topic yet, so we'll hang on to that here for just a second. But
I don't even know it.
Oh, you do so.
Surprise!
One of hopefully our listeners. I don't know. I hope Vicky listens.
Hope so.
But
at least to this episode.
Yeah, a friend has dropped off a gift for Seeking the Paranormal, and we have vowed not to open it until we are all three together.
It's anthrax or something.
It is not. All right, Adam.
Why do I have to do it?
Because it's anthrax or something.
Oh, I see.
I
see how much you care about me.
All
right.
She says we may think she's weird, but basically anything that's weird we pretty much love, so.
Looks like a doll. I can see.
Oh, it is a doll. Oh, for the love of Pete. And it's a creepy doll. I'll bet it makes noises. Let's see.
Why are you looking up its skirt?
Because it said The Exorcist.
Oh, right.
It's an Exorcist doll?
Yeah, it is.
Oh my god! Squeeze her hand! Duh, it says right in her hand. Oh my god.
At least Pazuzu's got a sense of humor.
I could not love this thing anymore. Holy cow, I'm so excited. Dude, I just watched that Pazuzu case.
Mm-hmm.
The real one, the guy that called himself that.
Yep.
That was crazy. He is a psycho because he ate his hands.
Ate his hands?
He ate into his wrist when he was in jail.
Oh.
And committed suicide. So if you ever watch Viceland, which is a great channel, and if you're not watching it, you should be, but there is a documentary series on there called The Devil You Know, I think is what it was called. But it's really good, but it is the Pazuzu case. But it was the human Pazuzu, not the demon Pazuzu that possessed Reagan. I can't think of her name there for a second.
Named after a president.
Makes sense.
He wasn't in office yet. You're such a liar. God.
He was an actor, though.
He was.
An actor.
Well, maybe she was named after him.
Yeah, so there.
Yeah.
So, you don't know.
No.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you.
That's a lot of discussion over a flippant comment, you know. It
was. Thank you so much, Vicky. I love our Reagan doll. I don't know where she's going to go yet, but I'm super excited. Probably up on my bookshelf.
Yeah, probably where it'll talk when I'm trying to put up another shelf or something.
Well, we've only been waiting for 3 years for you to put up another shelf, so I feel like we're pretty safe there.
She should just levitate above the bookshelf.
That would be fantastic. If we could figure that out.
Fishing line.
Anyway, let's unveil our file for the night. So,
Dun, 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 dun.
I know, we are going to talk about the Doris Bither case. And if I were to say that name to most people today, they probably would not have any clue who I'm talking about. And that's really weird to me. Doris Bither is, of course, the main character of the movie and the book The Entity, written by Frank De Felitta. Give you a little bit of a synopsis here on the case. On August 22nd, 1974, and I'm getting this off of the Singular Florentine Society's website. I thought they did a good job just summarizing it. So on August 22nd, 1974, Dr. Barry Taff and Carrie Gaynor began their investigation into the haunting of Doris Bither in Culver City, California. Doris was a single mother who claimed that the home she shared with her daughter and 3 sons was haunted, and that she had been victimized by the spirits therein. 2 of the ghosts held her down while the 3rd one raped her. The Bither family life was a tumultuous one, and Doris had been in several abusive relationships along with having a history of substance abuse. The Bither home was said to have been in shambles, with dirty dishes piled in the sink and squalid living conditions. The house was twice condemned by the city, according to Dr. Taff. In addition to the claims of assault by Doris, all 4 children claimed to have seen apparitions, the most prominent of which they nicknamed Mr. Who's It. Investigators reported feeling strange pressure in the ears while in the house. The most disturbing aspect of the case was, of course, the reported spectral rape, of which Dr. Taff and Gaynor were initially skeptical. However, bruises on Doris's inner thighs and other conspicuous wounds would quickly convince them of the seriousness of the phenomenon. Although high-speed cameras were brought in to capture the phenomena, very little of the substance wound up on film. In one instance, Doris was said to have provoked the beings into a visible manifestation. Investigators present reported that lights appearing around the room, a green mist billowing from one corner, and the form of a man's upper torso becoming visible within the unnatural fog. There were no facial details to the torso, but it did reportedly show musculature, leading them to believe that it was male. These events proved impossible to record on film, and pictures taken show only a free-floating arc of light over Doris as pictured. And we'll share that on our Facebook page and Twitter. The origin of the haunting is controversial, with skeptics musing that Doris Bither's history of addiction, abuse, and difficult relationship she had with her sons led to a sort of mental break. Still others believe that the case points toward a ghostly or even demonic influence, although Dr. Taff doesn't agree with that assessment. Now, we'll talk about Barry Taff here in a second, but I'm just going to read his quote here. So, contrary to what many people believe, the case of Doris Bither was not, in my professional opinion, the result of spectral rape, aka spectrophilia, but rather a disturbingly real poltergeist outbreak, wrote Dr. Taff in his blog. Unfortunately, the mass data on the case does not in any way support ghostly sex, but back in the mid-1970s, in my mid-20s, such a notion was intriguing to say the least. So, Brian Harris is Doris's middle son. He was 13 at the time. Her oldest was 16 and her youngest son was 10. Her daughter was 6. Brian is the only one that I've been able to find that has come forward to talk about the case at all. Now, there's a lot to talk about with this. Number one, what we think was going on, and there's so much to think about. Also, if you're unfamiliar with Dr. Barry Taff, I'll let you do your own research on him. But basically, he's incredibly smart. He participated in the UCLA's parapsychology lab, which was open from 1969 and 1978, and it was headed by Dr. Thelma Moss. He's got all kinds of, his master's and his doctorate and all kinds of things in really smart shit. So, when you listen to him speak, however, I don't know, I suppose it's just his personality, but he comes off a little full of himself.
Little?
Well,
he comes off quite full of himself.
I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Now stop it.
I don't think, and Adam and I listened to a few podcasts. We went to Indiana and back. We listened to a few podcasts talk about this case just to kind of get some other insight into it. And there was one in particular that we listened to, and I think they let Barry's personality kind of blind them to the facts of the case. Because despite how eccentric Dr. Taff is, I think he's got some good insight into this case. And of course, he's the one that we get most of our information from. Now, I will say that his opinion of what happened on the case and Brian Harris's opinion on the case differ
greatly.
Yes.
I don't even really know where to start with this. I guess we can start talking a little bit about Doris's background because that's important to know. She lived in Illinois with her family until she was 10, and then they moved to California. My understanding is that they lived in maybe Pasadena and were probably upper middle class, if not above that. Her parents were both alcoholics and lived a very strict, or I guess tried to keep a very strict household. And
That's hard to do when you're an alcoholic.
that's true. Doris apparently rebelled, and before she was 18, I believe, she left the house. Now, she had been disowned by her parents as well as an aunt and uncle, and apparently had a brother because her parents left everything they had to the brother, and she got nothing. In the interim before she was spectrally raped, she ended up having several different marriages, lots of bad relationships, 4 kids with 4 dads, and developed her own alcoholic problem. And as you can imagine, a single mother with 4 kids, she was not living in the best of circumstances. And according to Dr. Taft, the house that he met her in Culver City at 11547 Braddock Drive, which is still standing, had twice been condemned by the city. Now, Brian Harris says that's not true. Barry Taft says when he entered the home, it was reeked of garbage and there were dirty dishes in the sink and it was chaos. Brian says that's also not true. But there's a lot of factors here that can kind of lead up, in my opinion, to what was taking place.
Yeah, I mean, when you add up her young life with living with alcoholic parents and possibly abusive, I don't know that there's any fact behind that, just speculation that there may have been some abuse. And then you add up all of her, extracurricular activities with her own alcohol and drug abuse and being in bad relationships and everything else. I mean, it's a pretty good case to have some mental issues, in my opinion.
Again, I think it was Barry Taft that said that she had also admitted to some drug use, although not consistent. I don't think she was addicted to drugs, probably just smoked marijuana would be my guess. But it also, in her younger years, dabbled in the occult, which probably just means that she read some books on black magic and probably played with a Ouija board, would be my guess. Now, when they met her, she was in her 30s, and this was 1974. So she was probably born about 1940. Now, she was never very forthcoming with her personal information, including her age. And as a matter of fact, we don't even really know when she died.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Harris said she died in 1995, and Barry Taft has stated that he believes she died in 1999. So, regardless, she's no longer with us. Where do you want to start? We're all just looking at so much to this
Well,
case.
honestly, my feeling is it's a non-event. It's, and it has so many parallels to the other case file you sent me, the Demon House.
Mm-hmm.
So many parallels. It's like reading the same case file almost. So they have troubled, disturbed lives with problems. So the place they're at was never haunted before and never haunted after.
Right.
It's so, the kids get collared for not going to school, blah, 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 blah. And I just think she had a break, a breakdown.
Yeah.
And, and it's, then you just start filling in the blanks of whatever you want, whatever excuses you want. And we already know from your history there that, she had occult stuff in her head. So, this isn't, if you don't have control, someone else must be controlling it, and then you have that break and you take that leap.
Right.
And one of the things that I read was something that Barry Taft wrote about the case, and he made the comment that he was very interested in asking her more about her personal life, but he was afraid if he went in depth on her drinking and possible drug use and everything else and other mental issues that she would not allow them to even investigate. Yeah, so there is a lot of other hidden things that are just speculation about what she may or may not have been into, but they couldn't expand on it because she may not have ever let him investigate the thing at all.
There's one story that I'm not really certain of the source of, but basically at some point it said that when Doris first moved into the Braddock Drive house, that a Mexican woman came to the door, knocked on it, said she had lived in the house when it was just a farm, which this is a community and all the houses look exactly the same, so I don't know how she would know that. But basically said she had lived in the house when it was just a farm, and it had been haunted then, and she needed to get out.
So what that story says is you've got a row of houses, all the same, apart from one that's a farmhouse. It's probably one of those suburbias that blew up in the 1950s after the GI Bill.
Oh, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, if you look at the house, it's a tiny little yellow box. I believe it had 2 or 3 bedrooms. So I have notes here that I was just going to see if it said how big the house was. I mean, it's super small. It's a 100-year-old home with a 2-level cellar, and people don't talk about that. The reason I think that's important to know is because the second time that Barry and Carrie came to the house, they said that you could smell death, what they described as death, which basically they said smelled like rotting flesh. Now, if there's a 2-level cellar, it's very possible to me that there could have been a dead animal down there, and that would have accounted for that smell. There is a full report, which I did not get a chance to read before we started. I'm just looking up here to see where that was. The Journal of Institute of the Electrical and Electronic Engineers. And I don't know, maybe that was published in 1976. I'm not really certain. I wrote 76 and I don't know what that means. But basically, they published their findings there. I wish I had gotten a chance to look at it a little bit more, but they never really said, did you go down in the cellar and check to see, did you do all these things?
I mean, when I crammed and I was reading the investigation, to me, it was, you can put as many letters after his name as you want, but it was a sloppy investigation. They don't even agree themselves on, were there dishes in the sink? Well, there were. Yes, there were.
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of observation can you trust in either one of them? It's just...
Well, and it is interesting because Carrie and Barry do have some differing opinions. For example...
It's not opinions. I mean, that's...
Well, yes.
Were there dishes in the sink?
Statements.
Yeah, that's
right.
Not opinion.
Well, and I guess I should take a step back. So how they got affiliated with Doris is kind of interesting. So Carrie and one of his colleagues were in a bookstore and were having a private discussion between themselves about another case they were working on. And Doris was there with her friend Candy, who is reportedly a psychic, and they were looking for books on the occult to try to help them figure out what was going on with Doris, and ended up overhearing Carrie and his colleague. And Doris apparently walked up to him and said, "My house is haunted. Do you want to check it out?" Carrie said, okay, took her number, and they parted ways. And within a week, they had made arrangements to come talk to her. And this time, Carrie brought Barry Tapp with him. And they went, talked to her, and Carrie says that, just check my notes here on who said what, because I don't want to misinform. So Barry says that one of the first things that Doris shared with them was that she was being physically and sexually attacked. And Carrie's recollection is that he knew she was holding back, and she was very elusive, I guess, with details that she wanted to share. And they basically had to pry the info from her about her attacks. And it was actually one of the last things that they found out. So, I mean, to your point, they can't even agree on that. Regardless, their first move was they gave her a number for somebody at the UCLA psychiatric center and told her she needed to talk to them. I don't believe she ever sought medical help or mental help, I guess I should say. About 10 days later, she called Carrie back and said, my friends have witnessed this now, and that was enough for them. And they came. And when I tell you they brought a team, they had 30 people in this tiny ass house. 30
Once
people.
Again, bad investigating.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be like 30 people probably in this room that we're sitting in right now.
Which, I mean, from what I've read, it all points towards sensationalism. If you look at the choice of words they use in the reports, to go back, the basement smelled like death. What does death smell like? I mean,
that's what Adam said too.
Why would you use that word? I mean, because it's drama.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean,
that always throws up a flag for me. You know, someone is now putting together a narrative when they start doing things like that. Now you're putting together a narrative that sounds more like a lead into a film.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the entity in the house that smells like death.
Did you watch the movie?
Yeah.
We kept saying we were going to, and we never did. Now, I will tell you, for our listeners who want to watch it, I found it on YouTube, but there is literally no other streaming place that I was able to find that movie where you could even buy it, let alone watch it.
I think you can buy it on Amazon, but not streaming.
Okay. Well, and the interesting thing about the movie, too, which I was a little confused about. So, the book came out, and Frank DeFelitta was actually part of the team that came to the house. The book, however, is a fictionalized recollection of the story. So he's admitted this is not...
Yeah, he's on record saying it's artistic license, you know.
Absolutely.
I took that original idea from the case and then blew it up to make a book.
Absolutely. And at the end, he had asked Barry, if you could have had anything you wanted in the whole wide world, what would you have done? And so he and Barry kind of collaborated on the end, and that's why, they basically make a perfect replica of her house in this this laboratory. And I mean, they attempted, I thought it was kind of interesting, their attempt to freeze the ghost. I realize it's fiction, but it was kind of an interesting.
Yeah.
That actually kind of interested me.
Was it liquid helium?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what they said?
Yeah. But it's, I mean, to me, that is the crux. This is kind of why I like doing the paranormal investigation. For me, it's if there is an entity, as per the book, and they have an influence in the physical world, touching, moving, whatever, they have to obey the laws of physics, in which case, they have to take on mass. If they take on mass, and stuff like that. So stuff like that, yeah. But,
So then you should be able to freeze it.
No. Why?
Because it has mass.
Yeah, but you can't freeze light.
No, that's true.
Light's massless, but he's like a particle and a wave. See, that's what's so
Goddamn
screwed up
physics.
about it.
Right. Oh, hello. Dog's mad.
But it has no mass. So, but light can influence things.
Right.
So,
Okay. Yeah, you're right. Well, anyway, with the movie, so the movie came out obviously after the book, and it was filmed in 1981, and then it was universally released in 1982, but they did not get licensed to release it in the United States until 1983. So
it was pornographic.
It is kind of. I understand.
It's
that.
soft porn.
It is.
Yeah, it's Playboy channel porn.
I had to watch it 4 times in my research.
I bet. Uh-huh.
Well, then you should have a great understanding of
The
how
wife
it
was
all
like, "What are you doing?" Research.
Yes.
What are you researching? I don't know yet.
Go upstairs, I'll tell you in 10 minutes.
But yes, does
this feel good to you? Saw it in a movie.
I saw it. I mean, everybody who has said anything about the movie, most people say that it was very disturbing. I don't know. By today's standards,
Well,
I don't know if you can still say that.
No, it actually, because even now, what you're really watching is a woman getting raped.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the thing that it's a ghost and it's horror kind of takes away from the rape aspect, and people go, oh, it's a demon and how horrible. And they don't think about it. You're watching a woman getting raped.
Right.
I mean, and in detail. So, yes, it's a disturbing movie.
And I wonder if that's, I guess I shouldn't even wonder. I mean, I'm sure that's why it didn't get released right away. Because I'm sure there was some...
They waited a whole year.
Well, I mean,
there was Last House on the Left come out? The original.
Oof, I don't know. I'd have to look that up.
That's cute.
I mean, you're going back to things like Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, I forget about that.
There's a movie.
Yeah, but the most disturbing scene is when he rapes the woman with a statue. And I mean, and the entity was no different.
I know. Well, I understand that. I mean, I think that's why it was probably waited to be released. Yeah. I think they were trying to be like, can we get away with this? I mean,
Last House on the Left came out in 1972.
Oh, so it was well before that then.
And Clockwork Orange. 1975.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
So both well before this one.
Well, both very disturbing in that exact way, but I wonder if, I don't know, is it a little bit different because it's an unseen force doing it?
Yeah, that's what I mean. It takes away from it,
Takes a little bit.
Well, and then also because there's based on a true story.
Well, okay.
But I mean, I'm sure that's how it starts. Based on a true story.
There is no legal. You can do anything and say based on a true story,
sure.
and there's no legal repercussion. You can't sue and say, hey, that's not true or that wasn't true. You can put that on any film.
Yeah.
Even Lord of the Rings, based on a true story. So I don't. Yeah, I'm the bad man in the room again, but I don't put stuff in just based on a true story. To give you another parallel, okay, so if you made a movie today about a woman getting repeatedly raped by an ISIS terrorist, people would go up the wall crazy.
Oh, absolutely.
So really, all you've got to do is replace whoever's doing the raping to make it. And this sounds really horrible, but it's true. So whoever's doing the raping, it's not the rape that's horrible, it's who's doing the raping that's horrible. In a lot of things, And it's such a double standard, horrible thing, but...
Well, I mean, let's talk about the rape a little bit. So I have kind of my own theory. I don't know that I've got much to base it on, but... I do find it interesting that, and actually, I think I said in my previous history thing that there were 3 entities, and actually there were 4. So Doris always said there was one large one that raped her, 2 small ones that held her down, and then the 4th was who the kids called Mr. Who's It. Now, the kids said that it was their grandfather, who they didn't have contact with, which is interesting. But they said he acted like their grandfather, he looked like their grandfather, and he told them he was their grandfather. So Javier Ortega, and then I've seen him somewhere where he lists himself as Xavier Ortega, so I'm not really sure what his first name really is. And actually, on the website Ghost Theory, his interview with Brian Harris, he lists his name as Xavier Ortega, but there's several places where Brian calls him Javier. So whatever. Anyway, what was my point? Oh, he has pointed out that just because a spirit would say, I'm your grandfather, in this case, because there's already such negativity in the house, it's probably an evil spirit, which I'm sure he was alluding to more of a demon, pretending to be their grandfather. Now, nothing was really said about Mr. Who's It except that they saw him frequently and he didn't really do anything. But in my opinion, the fact that they are seeing what they believe is their grandfather in their house while Doris says she is being raped is important. I wonder if there wasn't some sexual abuse happening between her father and her, and if that's part of what built this up. Now, in my opinion, I think this is a pretty good case of a poltergeist, which is basically just Doris's mind is making this stuff happen. You know, it's kind of psychokinesis type stuff. You know, she may or may not have given herself a hysterical pregnancy after she moved even out of Culver City. That happened several years after that. She had moved from Culver City to somewhere else in California and then ended up moving to Texas. And Barry Taft stayed in contact with her for a while, but then she ended up, you know, stopped communicating with him. You know,
I can't go that far. Now, to me, a more plausible excuse would be, you know, yes, she was getting raped, but by someone she knew, but the kids didn't. So they're seeing this guy and like, who's that? Mr. Who is it? It's a joke.
mm-hmm.
But then things start to get serious, and all of a sudden they fall back on, well, it's a ghost, it's not a real person.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that's how their mind deals with it, maybe. And she is getting raped, and she's not saying who it is for whatever reason, or couldn't even remember if she's drunk.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so
that's where I was going with it. When you said that, I was thinking,
you know, I think, you know, she comes in, she's drinking, the guy's there, kid's like, who is it? And then it gets serious, the kid's put on the mental block.
Yeah.
And then when it starts going in that direction with the stories, that's how the kids help, you know. They're like, okay, it must be a ghost. You know, it's a nasty ghost.
And there's a lot of people who feel like there may have been some sexual abuse between Doris and her sons. Now, the oldest son, who I have no idea what his name is, I couldn't find it anywhere, who was 16 at the time.
Didn't we make up a name for people?
We did. Brad and Jerry.
Let's call him Brad. Call him Brad. Just make up names.
He apparently was, according to Brian Harris, not a very nice person, and he was pretty crabby. But, you know, when you've got this stuff going on in your house, how can you not be? Your mom's an alcoholic. That's a lot of negativity. And you've probably got a lot of responsibility that you don't want.
As he gets older, I mean, if he's still living in that kind of situation, and then he sees like a movie come out, a book come out, everybody's doing well out of his situation, I think I'd be crabby at the people too.
Yeah. I can understand that too. I mean, the kids say that they saw their mother being raped. I can't imagine what that would have been like.
But maybe...
Now, Brian says the first part of the book is pretty accurate for the most part. And I was surprised. I've read the book twice, and the first time I think I was so, like, just believing in the ghost theory that I kind of ignored the rest. The second time I read it, I'm like, oh my God, this is like smut. It's like a porn book.
See?
It really is. But it surprised me, like...
What are you doing? Research!
It surprised me about how she seemed to be just okay, you know, and walking around in nothing but a robe. She sleeps naked at night. I don't know any moms that do that because, you know, you never know when your kids are coming in. And,
well, she probably didn't. But that's the tone of the book.
Well, and that very well could be. I just, like I said, Brian said the first part of the book seems to be very accurate to him. So who knows? I don't know. I don't know that anybody
was
really
there washing
knows.
up in the sink or not? You know, how accurate was it?
Right.
I'm sorry.
I'm nothing to be
the only thing that I can say about that, it was all just, I guess, like you're saying, kind of alluding to, made up and sensationalized. I mean, I do agree that a lot of it's sensationalized. The only thing is, what did she get out of it? Like, she would have had to been the one to approach them.
She did.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and that's the story. That's what I'm saying. Like, she would have been the one to approach them. So in the back of, if she was going to sensationalize the whole thing and do it, there has to be a reason for it. So what was her gain behind it? I mean, in the grand scheme of things, she got nothing out of doing this.
I have an idea in that if you are going to go to that extreme mentally, internally, as to none of this is my fault, even though it is. When you come up with that kind of, the more validation you can get from outside helps you validate it yourself. If you see what I mean.
Yes.
So,
yes.
You'll get people that will shoot someone, and they'll say, "Oh, it's self-defense." It's like, yeah, but the guy was running away and he wasn't armed. No, he threatened me, and the more witnesses he can get to say that's what happened, even though that isn't what happened.
Like saying somebody used CBD oil 4 times when they're saying they only used it once, but then you coerce other people into saying, she never uses essential oils.
And the more outside people you can get to validate yourself in your head, the better you feel about it. That's just a guess from me.
Yeah, I guess I can't disagree with that. I mean, it's very clear, no matter what direction you feel about this, whether you think it's a poltergeist type thing, whether you think it's totally fake, whether you think
Zach thinks it's a demon.
I mean, honestly, in my opinion, I'm not just trying to be the middleman here, but in my opinion, I think it's a combination of both. I think there's a lot of fake things, but I also think that there might be some poltergeist activity going on because of all of the trauma and everything else that's happening, and whether that's being brought on by one of the kids that possibly is being molested, like you alluded to. I mean, I wouldn't think that that's out of the realm of possibilities either.
It's all possible. I'm not saying it's not possible. What I'm saying is it's not probable. And the thing that really ticks me off is when people go in that are supposed to be good investigators with letters after their name, go and then just bolsh up the whole investigation, so you're never gonna know. And then not only that, on top of that, they take their crapped up investigation and then dramatize it to make a book. So now you're never ever gonna get to what really happened.
No.
In my mind.
Yeah, and Barry has admitted that they were very inexperienced at the time, and there was a lot that they would redo if it happened today. So he's admitted he knows there's faults in this. So
the only
there's a reason for that too.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say. I mean, you could definitely say that there is some things left out because they needed to. I mean, if they had all of those people and all of those photographers and all of those witnesses to all of these events, why are not more of them talking about this? I mean, if there was 30 people in the room, we should have 30 eyewitness accounts. But we hear a lot about Barry Taff and Gary Gaynor and whatever the other guy was that wrote the book, whatever his damn name was.
Frank
We'll just call him John.
Dave
I mean,
No, you're not allowed to use my name and pretend.
With an H.
Mine's got an H.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
So
the H is silent, though.
Yes. So why is there not all of those other accounts? I mean, why are we not getting the account from the investigator that saw the apparition form and then passed out? Like, why is that person not come forward to be like, this is why I passed out?
And Dr. Thelma Moss was in charge of the unit, and she made one visit to the home, and on that occasion, nothing happened. Which, to me, again, leads credence maybe a little bit to how Doris felt about men, because it was in the presence of men that these activities happened. Too much of a stretch?
I'm sorry, I'm not buying any of it. And the point I was going to make about his sudden admission, if I knew then what I know now, and we were at the time, come on, like you say, letters after names, there was no one more qualified, and basic, detective work, basic investigating is common sense, and then that flew out the window. I think it's the other way around. He says, look at all the letters after my name, look how good I am, I was there, this is a true story. Mm-hmm. And then people start picking holes in the story, going, after the years, and then he can go back after enough time's gone and say, yeah, there's holes in the story because I wasn't very good at it. Well, you were very good at it, right? Because, you can't say you were good at it and then later say you weren't good at it. You can say I've learned things since then, but you can't say I wasn't good at it then.
Yeah, because at the time he was working for UCLA in their...
You can't say I'm not good
at it. You've got to have some knowledge.
Which, interestingly enough, just a side note, UCLA, if you call them today and ask them if they had a parapsychology department, they'll tell you no.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure they will. But, in that one interview that we listened to, him talking about the experiments that he was doing, I wasn't there, that he was doing in their lab at UCLA, why weren't they doing this stuff at this lady's house?
Why didn't they call her in to the lab?
I'm just saying, I'm agreeing with John. It doesn't happen often. I'm agreeing with John with, you had the experience, you had the knowledge, you're able to do these experiments. Why are you not taking those experiments and doing them at her house for a proper investigation? Because we sit around our little campfire and come up with ideas, and we go and try them. Mm-hmm. And they were coming up with ideas that in a lab were working, and then didn't do it at her house?
It's just
that doesn't
basics.
make sense.
There's a murder. How many murder scenes have 30 detectives showing up on the scene, trampling around? It's just basics.
Yeah. Velisca.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, the entire town
never called him either, did they?
Nope.
So we've focused a lot on the rapes that were happening with Doris, but actually there was more activity than just that taking place. And actually, interestingly enough to note, once the investigation started with the people from UCLA, the rape stopped. Now, there is some speculation that once the investigation ended and she'd kind of cut ties with the UCLA lab, that they started again. And that, of course, is kind of where that hysterical pregnancy came from, which, if you're unfamiliar, the power of the mind is an amazing thing. And women can actually believe themselves pregnant. You'll start to, kind of fill out like you're pregnant. Your breasts will get heavy.
Oh my God, I'm pregnant.
I know. I've heard of women even lactating in such a situation. The problem is there's no baby. So, and whether...
You're just not trying hard enough.
Right. Now, I did see one of the interviews with Brian Harris. He did say that after they had moved to Texas, Doris was associating with a lot of really sketchy men. And maybe to your guys' point earlier, too, he said that it is possible that she did become pregnant by one of them and maybe miscarried or had. Sometimes when the egg will get stuck in like the fallopian tube, and maybe it aborted that way, instead of it being a hysterical pregnancy. But there again, it was easier to blame it on supernatural than on...
I just had a great idea of making my next million. Implant GPSs into women's eggs so they don't get lost.
Oh my God. Where does this come from?
Turn left.
Wouldn't it be just as good to implant it into the guy's sperm?
Well, no, because
that way you can tell it where to go.
There's millions of them. We just shotgun it. One of them will get there. It's like Normandy beaches. Go. You won't all make it, but go.
This isn't off topic at all.
Why?
All right. So, August 22nd, 1974 is the first time that the duo made it over to Braddock Street in Culver City. And about November 1st was when they returned. And upon their return, they say the bedroom was freezing and it smelled like rotting flesh, or death is actually what Harry's half said. When they were in the kitchen talking, a lower cupboard door opened and a skillet flew out at approximately 3 feet. But the curve that it took, the route of, I guess it's flying out, suggested that it had been flung out as opposed to just falling out. They said that was paranormal as well. They witnessed a lot of orbs, Now, they were witnessing these with their eyes, not with the aid of a camera. So much like Borley Church, when the BBC was seeing the lights, it's a similar situation. So they're seeing all these balls of lights, and that's the most prominent activity that they're seeing when they're investigating the house. In an effort to try to figure out where these were in the room, they hung poster board all over the walls and ceiling. It was black poster board. They used, I think, white duct tape or silver duct tape in the middle, so they made kind of a grid. And at one time, they even tried communicating. So, like if the answer was yes, go blink in this box. If it's no, go blink in this box. I don't know if that was ever successful or not.
Probably not. Otherwise, it would be in there that it was.
I would agree with you.
And we'd all be trying it.
The main point of the poster board was, again, to calculate where in space the lights were, and then also to calculate how fast they were moving. They did try to photograph these, and we'll put this picture on, and this is actually going to be our picture of the week, so we'll talk about it a little bit here in a minute. But there's a famous picture of Doris sitting on her bed with an arc of light over her. Now, the interesting thing about the arc is that it appears to be free-floating. It doesn't curve with the wall, which, according to Carrie Gaynor, means that it has mass and is taking up space in the room. Some people have said that the lapse was the arc is just the shutter open too long, but it shows then the path of the orb. So either way, paranormal. The lights were always lime green, which I don't know what the importance of that was, but they did point that out. As Adam said earlier, 2 assistants did pass out after witnessing the lights because, according to Barry, it was just too much for their minds to take. And then one night, the lights formed into a mist, and a male torso started to form out of it. Now, they got the arm, the chest, and just started into the face, but a face never fully emerged. There were 25 witnesses to that event.
Not one of them with a camera. It seems good investigation.
Nobody took a picture, although most of the time when activity was happening, and they did have professional photographers in the room, the activity was unable to be captured on film. So similar to what people say, they see a full body apparition, they take a picture, and there's nothing in the picture. Is kind of what they were saying happened here. There was one night where I guess they weren't getting much activity, so per usual, they encouraged Doris to kind of antagonize the entities, and it started tearing down poster boards with the duct tape and would pull some paint and plaster off the wall with it and was flinging them at Doris.
Any pictures?
No.
Do you see a theme here?
Their Geiger counters showed no recordings when activity was peaking and showed normal readings when there was no activity present.
So they had Geiger counters running, but no photographs or anything?
They said the activity was unable to be photographed.
Well, no. You can photograph a board coming off of the wall. Trust me.
I don't disagree with that. They also said the cold spots did not register on their thermometers. So they could feel them personally, but they could not get the temperature to register. Now, when Doris stopped drinking, the phenomenon stopped as well, which in my opinion also leads credence to the poltergeist. And there was also, Barry Taft has also said that when the kids were listening to what he called satanic music, which is Black Sabbath, the activity would spike, I guess. What is it? Urethra Heed was the other.
Uriah Heep?
Yes. Yeah. I couldn't think of the name of it, so I made something up.
Urethra something different.
Yep, it is.
Yep, it is.
But it wouldn't surprise me there's probably a band called that.
There was. Aretha Franklin.
Oh, isn't she dead? Don't talk about dead people like that. There was one, Brian.
You know Hitler's dead too. Should we not be nice to him?
No, we can talk about him. Are we talking about Hitler or are we talking about Chris Moon? Because I think we've made correlations between the both.
Did we?
Kind of, probably, yeah.
That's probably what
I think you did.
Yeah.
We just didn't stop you.
Well, there you go. Evil things happen when a good man does nothing.
There you go. So Brian Harris did Backberry on that point, and he said there's a song called Wizard, which is on the, Demons and Wizards album. Mm-hmm. And it particularly seemed to spike when they were listening to that album, which apparently is about the devil. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I've never heard it.
No, he isn't.
But that's what Brian said. I don't know.
Yeah, he's not a Black Sabbath fan because it's satanic music.
Well, yeah.
I grew up with Black Sabbath and all those albums.
Doris did eventually move out of the house because it had been sold, and she had been renting at the time. The crew followed her to her next house, and the activity continued there, although Brian Harris said it did not. Eventually, she moved to Texas and stopped answering them. So they have recordings of a loud crash of a vase breaking, and there was nobody who threw it because everybody had been focusing on Doris at the time, but it did apparently fly through the air and break, and they do have the crash sound recorded. Right. On the recording, followed by the crash, is deep, heavy breathing, some heavy dragging steps, and then the recorder shut off by itself. They did attempt to put the grid back up on the wall, and it was pulled off again. So the theory was that the entity did not want it up. So, just looking through my notes to see if there's any other activity that I missed here. So lots of other kind of paranormal things.
Claims.
Yeah.
They're all anecdotes.
They are.
Which
is what
for a UCLA investigation team, that is piss poor, I think. Which lends me to believe that it didn't happen.
I think it's definitely interesting that they state that they were never able to photograph what was happening. That is definitely curious to me to a certain extent. The not being able to get the balls of light, that not so much, but, or even the mist. I'm even going to let that one slide. But like you said, the physical solid things like the grid falling and flying. No, and I don't know if there's any video at all of anything that happened in that house.
So here's the thing.
Hashtag.
Ooh, first time.
There's my $1 million right there.
There it is. T-shirts.
When did Poltergeist come out? That was in the 80s.
Poltergeist actually, and this is kind of what sucked for the movie, it came out in 1982. So had the entity been released in the United States when it was universally released, it would have just beat Poltergeist out, but Poltergeist actually beat it out.
Okay, but my point is, when especially because it wasn't just UCLA, there were a couple of colleges
Duke
didn't have it
Duke
on.
Still has their Ryan University.
Well, they had what they called fellowships. So what they would do is they say, no, we're not going to open a department, but the students could get together with, whatever, doctor was interested in doing it. They form fellowships and they go out and do it. And if you watch Poltergeist, they base that on what these guys were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And what these guys were doing, that were doing it properly, they had cameras all over the place, stuff all over the place. Any of that would have happened in a proper investigation at that time. It would have been videoed, photographed. It was not a proper investigation. It's a narration.
Well, and it's interesting to me as well that there's no, on YouTube you can find recordings of Annalise Michael, going through her exorcism, but there's no recorded conversation with Doris Bither anywhere. In fact, there's no pictures of her except for this picture, the few pictures that are out there with an arc over her head, and there's a couple, I think, of light flying through the air. But beyond that,
once again, it didn't.
It is minimal.
It just didn't sell me. Not with the build up of, we're investigators. They weren't investigating properly. And to me, the only thing that came out of that was the story, and it was dramatized, and then you start seeing words like smells like death, and then and to me that's always a flag. And I'm like, I'm sorry, no. And if all these things happen, and you're supposed to be an investigation team from a college, and you don't have the equipment or the wherewithal to actually do an investigation. My next question is, what are you doing there?
Well, you're certainly not helping.
No, and I mean, even if it was a real thing, what they've done is convinced me that it isn't real, instead of doing what they should have done and said, no, this stuff's going on, here's the evidence. They've done completely the opposite to me.
The fact that Doris asked for help and still remains uncooperative with them makes me feel like she was uncomfortable, and obviously I don't know her, so these are all speculations. But I feel like that, to me, still leads credence to she didn't know what was happening to her. So my stance is I do think that there was poltergeist activity happening, and, negativity breeds negativity. And so a lot of times when you find people who say that they believe that there's something negative in their house, you'll go to these houses and they're hoarders, or they've got, stuff everywhere and everybody's in a crabby mood. And then the activity seems to pick up when they're fighting, and then they blame their negative attitudes on whatever's in the house, when in reality, it's probably their negative attitude that's creating the activity in the house. If that makes sense.
No, that's a fair thesis.
But, I kind of think that's what was happening here. That's my opinion anyway. I think that Doris probably had a lot of shit that she was not addressing. I mean, as far as we know, up until her death, she declined any type of mental health treatment. I think it's very likely that she was probably sexually abused based on her claims with this ghost. And obviously she wasn't dealing with that. That's got to be pretty traumatic. And then to be cast out from your family completely. I mean, you've been thrown away time and time again. So, back to Mr. Taff. Or Dr. Taff, excuse me.
Must we?
He does say that Doris Bither's case is only one in over 4,000 poltergeist activity cases that he's worked on. He says there's no such thing as the paranormal. He says it's misnomer. He says that what we've been calling paranormal is actually more normal than we may think.
Where's the proof?
I know.
Say things like that without proof. Especially not 4,000 cases.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Well, exactly. I mean, the guy talks about 4,000 cases, but...
He does have a theory.
Okay, a theory.
Here's his
I've got
theory.
a theory, too.
I know. According to Dr. Tapp, what we imagine as ghosts is actually stemming from very real and very live people. Tapp refers to these people as poltergeist agents who unknowingly act as biological wave guides when they enter a specific environment. Essentially, Tapp lists 3 variables that act together in concert to produce the physical manifestations of a good old-fashioned haunting. Number 1, the haunting site is located in an electromagnetically anomalous environment. Number 2, the poltergeist agent is usually prone to seizures or epileptic, and their biomagnetic field emits well over 1 million times the amplitude compared to the average person. And number 3, the poltergeist agent is neurologically wired in a way, usually an inability to cope with stress that enables their nervous system to hyperreact to said environment and wreak paranormal havoc.
Okay, awesome. I really like that. Except for the fact that, did he test it? If he knows what does it, he should be able to set up those conditions and record.
Well, he says he has in these 4,500 cases. Now, the interesting thing is I have never seen anywhere where Doris was epileptic or prone to seizures. Now, he says that they're not. Poltergeist phenomena, according to Taft, can also behave like a virus, following the agents from house to house, infected the site, leaving it saturated with his residual energy for another potential agent to come along, move in, and pick up. Now, not everybody who has seizures or is epileptic is going to be prone to poltergeist activity. You have to have all the right ingredients to make it happen.
That's fine. So, reproduce it in a lab. The other thing that strikes me as weird, so biological electromagnetic energy. So that's your cells doing their normal functions.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for them to put off 1 million times that amount of energy, just think, all right, just something simple. How the calories you need to burn. to produce that much. It's just stupid. I mean,
I haven't read much of what he's written. Now, he did come out with a book in 2010 that's called Aliens Above,
Ghosts Below.
Ghosts Below.
Mm-hmm.
I've not read it, and honestly, I've not really read any of his writings on his blog or any of his...
I've read his blog.
Published,
My research.
I understand. How'd that go for you?
Oh my word, it was wonderful. Oh my God, never make me do that again, please. I'm like, I mean, I do it as research, but I guess the thing that irks me with him is that because I don't know where he got his doctorate or anything, the guy's just a kook, as far as I'm concerned. But because he's got those, especially if you go to the comments, he's like, I know everything, you know nothing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is the way it is. And then...
Now, do you let that perception of him...
influence me?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll happen. No.
Okay, I'm just asking.
No, I mean, I read his stuff. and like I said, his thesis, if he's going to come up with these, okay, it's these three things that cause poltergeist, then you can recreate it. I mean, that's how science works. You know, if you do this and do this and do this, this will happen. And then we do the experiment, make sure it happens, then we know we're right.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got the observations of when this, and this come together. I think his big problem is getting someone to produce 1 million times the EMF.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
I don't think that's physically possible.
No, but, it's...
I think if you did, you would be dead when you were done.
Of course you would.
Yeah.
I mean, so... It's just nonsense. I don't care how many letters he has or what university. I mean, I could go to university, spend 10 years, get all the stuff, come out and just spout nonsense at people. It doesn't make me right,
Do you know if because you're part of the Psychical Research or Society for Psychical Research, do you know if they have any writings on this case?
Oh, I could go look. Their journals are like massive.
Oh, I'm sure.
It's, and they've got enough of their own kooks, to be honest with you.
Oh, for sure.
They might all be scientists, but some of them are pretty kooky. But the nice thing is someone will slap the other one down, so you're like, at least it kind of evens it out. They are pro-spiritualists, a little, but, But no, I mean, I didn't look there because their stuff is just, I mean, there's so much there.
Yeah. Now, the interesting thing as well, I think, is that Carrie Gaynor does not appear to be really affiliated with Barry Tapp any longer.
Well, the other thing is, they didn't investigate her, so they probably don't have anything. They only have what they investigate. They've got a ton of stuff on poltergeist. I mean, I haven't even touched poltergeist because I don't think, well, for me personally, that's not a haunting. That's, psychokinetic stuff. That's a whole different area.
That's why I hate that we call it poltergeist, because the definition of poltergeist, as I'm sure everybody knows, is German for noisy ghost.
Yep.
I hate that that's the word we use for this type of activity, because it's really not a ghost at all.
It's total different, genre or whatever you want to call it. Total different area. For me personally, I think.
It's very misleading.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I'm going to come back to the case a little bit, just because this just popped in my head. When we're talking about poltergeist and we're talking about, all of these things that are happening. So, her oldest son, was 16 at the time, and everybody talks about him being very angry. So, part of my thought was his anger and frustration with his mom and what she was doing and how she was leading her life and how she was treating the kids, was he bringing it on her.
See, I thought he might be the agent as well.
I mean, if you want to go with that poltergeist theory, that makes sense to me.
It seemed to be because the activity responded more to Doris's behaviors and circumstance than it did anybody else's, that's why they deducted that she was the agent. But yes, I wondered that as well. If one of the kids wasn't, maybe, and even Brian, maybe, if one of them wasn't the agent, angry at mom, maybe mom got drunk and touched your wee-wee and you got mad at her, and so now you're making her spectrally raped every night.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Show me on the door where she touched you.
Right.
Wasn't it Firestarter by Stephen King? She could just like start shit on fire. Maybe that's what this kid is. He's just like, fuck you, you pissed me off, and now you're going to get yours back.
And he's
I love that you think this is funny.
He's not...
He's dying over here.
How can I call up Stephen King and say, you need to write a book called Psycho Dildo or something. It's like Firestarter, but different. Every time he gets pissed off.
It's like chapter 2 of Firestarter.
She had a brother. Every time he gets pissed off.
That's right.
Somebody gets screwed.
Somebody gets screwed. So, I do think that might be my theory behind what's happened in this case. Because the activity picked up when the kid was listening to Black Sabbath music. So let's just say that was the type of music that he liked to listen to.
Well, it wasn't just him.
Well, okay, when they played the music. But let's just say that when that particular kid listened to that music, it got him pumped up and got his adrenaline going. And he was already
up.
Oh, yeah. Pumped up. That's just wrong on so many levels.
Are we really going there now?
No. You went there first.
You did. Followed. I know, you started it.
Actually, yeah, you were the one that brought it into the gutter with
you
the
did. You did say with Mom touched my wiener.
Yep, and then
my wee wee.
Say wiener.
You said wee wee.
And I was.
It was inferred.
Talking serious.
So that might be my standing theory behind this whole entire case.
You know what? And I really like the way you're thinking. And you're doing better than that Dr. Egypt.
Dr. Egypt.
I'm serious. So, and that
maybe that's what the E in his middle name stands for.
Egypt.
Very Egypt Taft.
Egypt. Ever wrong. I don't know.
So Barry doesn't do a whole lot anymore, but there are podcasts where you can hear him talk about his cases. And actually, this is not one he talks about very often. Got several others, and he claims to be psychic as well. And he likes to talk about that a little bit more.
If he's psychic, catch that. What I just thought about him.
Yeah, psychic and extremely self-motivated by his ego.
Self-motivated. That's a good word. You mean narcissistic?
Okay, yes. We'll go with that. He's a little bit. Mm-hmm. Listen, I'm trying to give the man the benefit of the doubt here.
Why?
I don't know. He claims
that's how they get away with it.
He's taken over this podcast. He claims that he has helped like the CIA, the FBI, basically any agency that has initials for its name. He has helped them in some way.
Right, but he can...
AARP?
Probably.
The thing is, he can say that, which is fine, but... And I'm sorry, maybe it's true, but none of those agencies are ever going to admit that he helped them with any type of psychic research or whatever research he did for them.
I helped MI5 with a ghost investigation.
Did you?
Yep.
Did you find anything?
I can't tell you.
Okay.
And they won't back me up.
Okay.
So don't bother researching it.
Well, exactly. That's my point.
That was like 3 days after I helped MI6.
Okay. Good.
Whatever the shit that is.
No, that is... You could say that.
I understand.
I mean, any of us could say that if we wanted to.
My name is Bond.
John Bond?
Casper Bond. The friendly ghost hunter.
Nice. All right. Well, I have just sent you boys a copy of the picture that we're going to talk about, which is from... It's on your phone.
Oh.
We need to get our phones. Get your phone.
I'm getting it out now.
Which is the one that we talked about. Doris is seated on her bed, and you can see the large group of investigators, which is interesting as I look at this, because the gentleman in the bottom left
corner... Why are they wearing no pants? Sorry.
What are you looking at?
Wrong picture.
The one in the... on the left side of the picture is holding a camera but does not appear to be taking any pictures. Anyway, above Doris as she's sitting on the bed is the arc of light that we spoke about. So, could be an arc of light. It could just be the path of an orb with an open shutter. As has been reported or talked about, I guess, it does not curve with the room, so it does appear to be a free floater.
A floater.
I wasn't going to go there.
I was.
Yeah, no. That's why I didn't.
The only thing I will point out, I'm not going to discredit this because I think it's an interesting picture. But if you get a hair on your lens, sometimes
I was
it can look
just
the
thinking
same
here,
way.
because I was looking at the right side of that, you could see where it's all frazzled and split.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that looks like a hair to me.
They've got split ends. They need to be
I know.
haircut.
Well, you know, it looks.
I mean, I could see where someone could definitely say that that's.
I mean,
you know,
they've
an
said
eyelash or
they
a
have
hair
sent
or something
this
that's
to
gotten-
all kinds of experts who have said it's definitely not
Curly
faked.
one.
Oh my god. Anyway, and I'm not saying I think it's faked. I certainly don't. But I do think it's.
She looks incredibly happy in that picture.
Well, that is the closest that you're ever going to get to a picture of her. Now, I don't know if you can see this. There is another picture with two arcs of light in it. Very similar. She's just not in it. And they kind of go against each other.
and
which-
they all have exactly the same curve.
They
which
do.
is kind of weird.
They do. So, do we think this is a misidentification? Do we think this is interesting?
I'm not the person to ask. I've already made my mind up. I think it's a crock of bull.
Everything?
Yeah.
Not even the stuff that's not related to Barry?
What do you mean not related to Bear?
Well, I think Carrie Gaynor.
I think there was some bad things going on, but I just don't think any of it was paranormal. I think she had a mental break. I think the kids were suffering. I think the kids were having mental problems because of that. I think this whole thing just got. Once you start a story, it's really hard to end a story.
You're right.
Which is why she probably just cut it off and said, I've had enough of this. I can't get out of the story.
Well, and I don't want to go too much longer because our efforts to keep these episodes shorter are failing tonight. But there is another interesting, and you can see this on YouTube, and I'll put a link of it on the Facebook and the Twitter, which is Carrie Gaynor talking about some pictures that they took with a Polaroid camera. My biggest problem, first off, is that it's a Polaroid camera, but I do think it's interesting to note what happened anyway. So Candy, who is Doris's friend, believes she's also psychic, and they were in the room, and Doris started to say, I think it's over here, and Candy's kind of agreeing with her, and every time one of them said, it's right here, they would take a picture with the Polaroid, and the picture would be nothing but bleached white. You know, they'd wait until they didn't say anything, and then they'd take another picture with the Polaroid in the same area, believing that it may have moved or dissipated, and the picture would be completely normal. And this all happened within maybe, 20 minutes in a room. So, Carrie Gaynor is the one who talks about it on this video, and he believes that it's showing psychic energy.
Could be.
So,
See, I don't want to completely shut it down. Well, I kind of do, but I'm not.
Kind of have.
Well, but that's because it was a bad investigation,
Okay.
which did exactly the opposite of what it's supposed to do.
Right.
Which is why I find it, so many bad conclusions on bad investigations makes it really hard to believe anything positive that comes out of it gets kind of tainted in that light. For me, I'm like, look, you screwed, you ballsed everything else up. Now now this is supposed to be real. I find that hard. It's cry wolf, You've done this 50 times, and I'm supposed to believe this one time is real. It's hard for me.
Yeah. All right.
I agree.
Well, that is our wrap up of the entity.
Mm-hmm.
So next week we will tackle another case. I like doing these. I think it's kind of fun.
I don't, because the 3 you sent me, I'm not a believer.
That's fine.
But that's fine. Because I'm going to come through as Mr. Nasty across on all these.
I mean, people are used
you're
to that
kind
by
of a
now.
dickhead.
I am.
Okay, so why are you shying from it?
Well,
Just be you. Be
I
the
will.
dickhead you are.
I will. And we shall soar in the ratings like we've never soared before.
That's the whole point of this.
Okay.
Not. No, I mean
Okay,
the whole. Fuck off.
Get to sawing. There's going to be a flood.
The point of this is that we're brutally honest. Regardless,
I mean that's.
Well, that is what I hope sets us apart from some of the other podcasts.
I was thinking about that on the way here, and I was like, I gotta tone it down, and then I thought to myself, we're called Seeking the Paranormal, not Found the Paranormal,
right.
So I'm gonna be the way I am.
I want you to. If you start censoring yourself, then we're not fulfilling what we wanted to do with this podcast.
Yeah, not only that, but then that means that you're compromising.
Yeah, that happens to me a lot. No.
No.
My life will be a lot easier if it did.
True, but
I'd be retired by now, probably.
Just keep writing. I'm going to make that million yet.
Yep. Scribbling away. Well, no. Typing away. Well, actually, there's a wrench in the new book.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I spilled my Captain Morgan in the keyboard, now it's all jammed up and I'll get a new one.
That damn captain.
Always the captain. Well, if you're unfamiliar with what a parapsychologist might do, as I mentioned, Adam and I were listening to some podcasts on the way back from Indiana, and we came across one that's called Encounters Podcast. The last post that they had of an episode was January 2018, so I don't believe that they are still recording. But I really like these two because they're very educated. They're post-grad students. One of them is a little bit more into aliens and cryptozoology, the other into ghosts, but neither one of them are very deep into either one. So their goal is not to dissect cases like we do, but just to bring, here's what people are saying. But they start out their show about the entity with about 17 minutes or so talking about what parapsychology is, and they do an excellent job. And I thought about just trying to kind of paraphrase, but I'm instead going to put a link up to them because I think it's worth listening to. Plus, I really like their podcast. I've listened to a couple more episodes since then, and they do a good job. It's nice when you've got educated folks talking about stuff.
Did they say the word wee-wee in their podcast?
They did not.
No.
Mm-mm. No, I saved that for
Not that good.
No.
I like at least one wee-wee in the podcast.
Yeah. We've got 2 wee-wees in this podcast.
Oh my god.
I left mine at home.
Oh. Jeannie's got it on the shelf, huh?
In a handbag.
Okay. Well, good.
All right. On that, let's get to everybody's favorite part of the show. We kind of moved it, but we're going to do our Stump John. Let me give Darren a call here real quick.
All right, let's do some votes.
Votes? What are we voting
Vote if
for?
this really is the favorite part of your show, because I'm not sure it's mine.
2 out of 3. 66%.
2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Yeah, we win.
Meatloaf.
Oh my god. All right, I'm going to call Darren. Hold on just a sec.
Hello.
Hi.
How's it going, guys?
John is on Pins and Needles. What do you got for us tonight?
So, how's John doing today?
I'm doing fine, thank you. How are you? With your shiny new phone.
Doing very good. Doing pretty good. So, my question for you today is, explain your string theory on the paranormal, and why is it your belief?
Well, I think if what we believe in the paranormal community of ghosts and ESP and everything like that, I think if it exists, it does relate to string theory. And the reason I believe that is because quantum physics, quantum mechanics, does not follow the normal laws of physics. And everything in the paranormal does not follow the normal laws of physics. So, if I change a particle, and then another particle that's entangled with it changes without anything between there, to me that sounds very much like the paranormal world. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
And also,
now, is that in scientific language or is that in layman's terms?
A little bit of both, but yeah, I honestly, I am not a quantum scientist, and I actually had a professor edit my book to make sure my facts were right when I put it in the book. So I have a basic understanding of things like light being, particles acting as a wave or a particle like light, what has mass, what gives them mass, the Higgs boson gives mass to particles, that kind of thing. So, and from that basic assumption, when the more I read about quantum mechanics, and also, a lot of science in general, scientists are becoming a lot more open about what they don't understand. And not only that they don't understand things, but they can't measure them now because they don't know what they are. So how do you measure something when you don't know what it is? Once again, I go on a ghost hunt. I'm like, I don't even know what I'm measuring. What am I supposed to be measuring for? I don't know what a ghost is. So I kind of have an affinity in my mind, between the two. That being said, scientists have us beat in that their theories work mathematically, which, I can't do. So they'll come up with, a theory. They use maths to describe the universe. And, so they got a speed there in which they can put forward something like that and then go away and do experiments. We're kind of got our hands tied in that we have such a huge narrative of the paranormal, where we have to go test for things that someone said. And I'll be honest with you, my feeling is, and I hope no one takes this personally, but 80% of that is just coming out of their imagination. So, it makes it really hard to narrow down what am I trying to measure. Does that help?
Yeah, that helps. That helps quite a bit. It helps me to understand as to what your perspective is on the paranormal. And, to make me think a little bit more about the stuff that, to think about when you go on an investigation and stuff.
Yeah, because...
So it does help quite a bit.
Yeah, because as I said, I think I said earlier today in the show is, the thing with paranormal is, and even if it's not quantum, let's say, take any kind of belief you have, when they do interact with us in a physical way or in a way we can measure, they have to do it to the laws of physics. So, if they touch us, or we can touch them, or we can see them, they're interacting, within the universe's laws of physics. Otherwise, it just wouldn't work. So, I guess my thing is, okay, now how are they doing that, and where's that coming from?
Right. What are your guys' take on it? What's his?
I don't even know.
I mean,
the tables have turned a little bit.
They have. I have just recently started looking at the physics side of the paranormal. So I think my views are too simplistic yet. I, like everybody else, we've just been kind of regurgitating the same facts that there's really, and I call them facts, but they're really not. But we've got, as John would say, this narrative about, what ghosts are and how they behave. But who came up with that? Where did it come from? We really don't know. So yeah, I'm still doing my grown-up research on the paranormal, and I'm just delving in. So I'm going to not answer just yet.
Because one of the biggest problems is that we can't do this every day, all day long. Like John was just saying before we were going to start recording, he's got the itch to go do an investigation. Well, it's not like, granted, we could go to the Granger house and do something if we wanted to, but we can't just jump and go somewhere whenever the heck we want to. And
Right.
we would definitely have to do a lot of tests. I would say we would want to go to a place that was reportedly haunted, or at least had some reports of something happening. But there's no guarantees that you're ever gonna find that at any given place on any given day.
Right.
So if we could do this for a living,
Or have a wealthy spouse, as Harry Price did.
yeah, that would change things for the better. Like, basically what we need is John to sell 1 million books, and then
Why would I have to sell $1 million? I just keep the $1 million.
Sell 1 million books.
$1 million books. I thought you said $1 million.
No.
Wait,
No, you don't need to sell. No. Gee,
I'll sell $1 million for $1.25 million
Yeah, well, I'd do that
on the
too.
speculative market.
Yeah. But no, what we need is John to sell 1 million books. Books. With paper.
Sorry, I have trouble understanding foreigners.
Oh my god.
And then we can all retire and we'll just travel around and investigate all the time.
Yes.
That sounds like a plan.
Sounds
Let's
like a
do
plan.
that.
Yeah, I'm there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll sell 1 million books as soon as I sell 1 million books.
Okay. All right.
So, that's just going to take probably
You
more
gotta
than a
start
million.
writing more books there, John.
I got to.
Well, you're still researching book number 2, correct?
I am.
All right.
Actually, book number 2 is
Oh, okay.
about the narrative of the paranormal and where it comes from. So, because that kind of got my when I did the science part, talking with people and what they believed, what was happening. I was like, where's this coming from? So now I'm doing research on what people actually believe and where that belief comes from, because I think that's helpful. If you go to a place and they tell you something's going on and what's going on and all that, if you have a background in, or at least try and have a background in, the different belief systems and where this narration's coming from that they're telling you, it's easier to pin stuff down into, wait a minute, this is the same thing, it's the same thing, it's the same thing, or this is something different, maybe I should look into this.
Right.
All
Well,
right.
that's all I've got for tonight.
That was excellent. You're doing great here. We appreciate it. Thank you for your time, sir. You have a great rest of your night.
You too. You guys have a good rest of your weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a good one.
Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.
See you later.
Bye.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for us tonight. I appreciate you listening, and I hope you'll join us next week for our next case file. If you want to catch up with John, see what he's up to, you can find him on the Facebook and the YouTube at WTF Investigations. And of course, that's also their website, WTFinvestigations.com. You can find his book on Amazon, but don't just check for Leaps of Faith, right? It's Leaps of Faith. And then what's the rest part?
Ghost hunting and objectivity.
Yes. And that is the easiest way to find it. But of course, we've got links to it on the Facebook and the Twitter as well. Buy it. You're going to love it. And then leave some feedback for him on Amazon and Goodreads so people can start to check him out more. If you want to find out what I'm up to, you can find me at C Paranormal Sarah on Facebook and Twitter. It's SEE Paranormal Sarah with an H. And of course, if you want to catch the three of us, again, the Facebook and the Twitter, Seeking the Paranormal.
You haven't found it yet?
We
Nope.
haven't.
Bye, guys.
All right, that's going to do it for us tonight. Thank you again. We will talk to you next week. Keep seeking the paranormal.
Thank you for listening, and be sure to follow Seeking the Paranormal on Facebook at Seeking the Paranormal, and also on Twitter at Seeking the P.